Another abstract piece? My father's voice dripped with disdain as he surveyed my latest painting. Sophie, when are you going to grow up and do something real with your life? I continued cleaning my brushes, refusing to let him see how much his words stung. The studio I'd built in my small apartment was my sanctuary, even if my parents saw it as just another sign of my failure to meet their expectations. This is real, Dad, I said quietly. My work is selling well. He snorted, adjusting his perfectly tailored suit. Selling? To who? Those coffee shops where you hang your little exhibitions. My name is Sophie Anderson, and at 31, I was both a disappointment to my family of prestigious art dealers and secretly one of the most successful collectors in the modern art world. Not that they knew that last part. The coffee shops pay their bills, I replied, thinking of the multimillion-dollar deals I closed that week under my professional alias, and they support local artists. Local artists, he muttered like it was a curse word. The Anderson Gallery hasn't showcased a local artist in 50 years. We deal in real art, Sophie. Masters. Established names. Not these experiments. I looked at my painting, an intricate exploration of light and shadow that would sell for more than my father's gallery made in a month, once I revealed it under my professional name. But Harrison Anderson would never see past his daughter's hobby to recognize real talent. Was there something specific you needed, Dad? I asked, finally turning to face him. You don't usually visit my neighborhood. He grimaced, looking around my modest apartment like he might catch something. Your mother wanted me to remind you about the gallery's anniversary gala next week. She expects you to attend. And Sophie, his eyes narrowed. Please dress appropriately. No paint-stained jeans or artistic statements. I know how to dress for a gala, I said, suppressing a smile as I thought of the designer gown hanging in my other apartment, the one my parents didn't know existed. Good, and try to be pleasant. We're having some very important collectors attending. The gallery's future could depend on making the right impression. That caught my attention. Harrison Anderson never admitted to needing anything, especially not good impressions. Is everything okay with the gallery? Fine, he said too quickly. Just the usual market fluctuations. Nothing for you to worry about with your alternative career path. After you left, I immediately called Maya, my business partner and the only person who knew both sides of my life. The great Harrison Anderson actually admitted to needing good impressions. Maya let out a low whistle. Things must be worse than we thought. Run the numbers again, I instructed. Everything about the Anderson Gallery, sales, acquisitions, market position. And Maya, be thorough. You got it, boss. Want me to check your parents' personal finances too? I hesitated. Investigating my own family felt wrong. But I'd learned the hard way that sentiment had no place in business. Yes, discreetly. Always am. By the way, that last piece you finished, Matsuda called again. He's offering 7 figures, sight unseen. I glanced at the painting my father had dismissed. Tell him it's not for sale yet. I have a feeling we might need it for something else. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. While my parents thought I was playing artist in my studio, I was actually managing a global art empire. Under the name S.A. Blake, I built one of the most influential collections of modern and contemporary art in the world. The irony wasn't lost on me. My parents worshipped S.A. Blake, had tried repeatedly to court him for their gallery. They never suspected that their disappointment of a daughter was the mysterious collector they so desperately wanted to impress. Maya's report arrived the night before the gala, and it was worse than I'd imagined. They're underwater, she explained during our secure video call. The gallery's been losing money for years. Your father's been covering it with personal funds, but, those are running out too. They've mortgaged everything. The gallery, their house, even their private collection. One more bad quarter and it all collapses. I sat back, letting the information sink in. The Anderson Gallery had been a cornerstone of the art world for 3 generations. My grandfather had built it from nothing. My father had elevated it to international prominence, and now, how did they let it get this bad? Maya's image flickered as she shuffled through documents. Multiple factors. They're still operating like it's 1990, all overhead, no digital presence. They've missed every major trend in contemporary art. But mostly, they're stuck in the past, showcasing the same established names while ignoring emerging talents. Everything I've been trying to tell them for years, I murmured. Exactly. The markets change, but they haven't. These days, collectors want to discover new artists, not just buy another Picasso. I thought of all the talented artists I'd discovered in those coffee shops my father sneered at. Many of them were now represented by my company, their work selling for small fortunes to collectors who appreciated innovation. What are their options? Without immediate intervention, bankruptcy within 6 months. Best case scenario, they're forced to sell the gallery. Worst case, they lose everything, including their reputation. I stared at my painting, the one Matsuda wanted to buy. Send me everything: financial records, market analysis, potential strategies. And Maya, get the lawyers ready. I think it's time for S.A. Blake to make an appearance. You're going to reveal yourself? No, I smiled. I'm going to save them. They just won't know it's me doing the saving. The morning of the gala, I prepared myself carefully. The dress I'd chosen, a classic Valentino in midnight blue, was elegant enough to meet my mother's standards while still allowing me to blend into the background. I wanted to observe tonight, not draw attention. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Paperwork ready. Sure you want to do this? Yes, I replied. Time to show them what local art can really do. The Anderson Gallery was housed in a magnificent historic building downtown. Its classical architecture a testament to old money and established tastes. As I walked up the marble steps, I remembered all the times I played here as a child, dreaming of having my own work displayed on these hallowed walls. Sophie, my mother's voice cut through my nostalgia. Thank goodness you're early, and you look suitable. Diana Anderson was the epitome of sophisticated grace, her silver hair perfectly styled and her designer dress impeccable. She air-kissed my cheek, careful not to smudge her makeup. The caterers are setting up in the East Wing, she said, already dismissing me. Make sure they don't touch any of the displays. Actually, Mom, I thought I'd look around first. It's been a while since I've seen the new acquisitions. She waved distractedly, her attention caught by arriving staff. I took advantage of her distraction to slip away, beginning my careful assessment of the gallery. The main hall was exactly as I remembered, grand, imposing, and hopelessly outdated. Masterpieces worth millions hung in predictable arrangements, their impact dulled by familiarity. There was nothing here to excite modern collectors, nothing to suggest the gallery understood contemporary trends. Doing a little reconnaissance? I turned to find Thomas Chen, my father's gallery director, watching me with knowing eyes. Thomas had always been kind to me, even when I was just the owner's rebellious daughter. Just admiring the classics, I said carefully. He glanced around before lowering his voice. Your father's worried. Won't admit it, of course, but this gala, it's more than just an anniversary celebration. Oh? Several major collectors are coming tonight. Your father's hoping to secure some significant investments. He paused. S.A. Blake was invited. I kept my expression neutral. The mysterious collector, I thought no one knew who they were. No one does. But your father's convinced Blake will appear tonight. He's desperate to make a deal. I thought of the documents Maya had prepared, the plans I'd spent all week perfecting. And if Blake doesn't show? Thomas sighed. Then I fear the Anderson Gallery's days are numbered. The gala began at 8. The gallery's halls filling with the elite of the art world. I recognized many faces, collectors I'd dealt with, artists I'd discovered, critics who'd unknowingly reviewed my work. All of them here to witness either the salvation or the downfall of one of the industry's most established institutions. My father was in his element, moving from group to group with practiced charm. But I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes kept darting to the entrance. Anything? He asked Thomas during a brief lull. No sign of Blake, Thomas replied. But the night is young. I checked my phone. Maya had everything in place. The offers, the contracts, the carefully crafted story that would explain S.A. Blake's interest in saving the Anderson Gallery. Sophie, my mother's sharp voice interrupted my thoughts. Stop hiding in corners. The Prescotts want to hear about your artistic endeavors. I suppressed a sigh and followed her to where Albert and Margaret Prescott held court. They were old family friends and significant collectors, though they'd never looked at my work. Still painting, dear? Margaret asked with carefully crafted concern. How persistent of you. Someone has to make the art that fills these walls, I replied mildly. Albert laughed as if I told a particularly naive joke. Yes, well, some art belongs in galleries and some belongs in other venues, like the private collections of discerning buyers who recognize talent regardless of name or pedigree. I thought but didn't say. The evening wore on, and I could see my father's composure cracking. Several potential investors had already made their excuses and left. The great S.A. Blake had not appeared. "It's over," I overheard him tell my mother in a quiet corner. "Without Blake's investment. Harrison, surely there are other options. None that won't cost us everything." He looked around the gallery, his life's work, his father's legacy. "Maybe it's time to accept that the world has changed. We just didn't change with it." I slipped away, finding a private spot to make a call. "Ready?" Maya asked. "Send it." Moments later, my father's phone buzzed. I watched as he read the message, his face transforming from despair to disbelief to desperate hope. "Diana," he called. "Blake's representative is coming, tomorrow morning." The gallery erupted in excited whispers. Everyone knew what this could mean. "See," my mother said, patting his arm. "All your worrying for nothing. Say Blake would never let the Anderson Gallery fail." I smiled, thinking of the papers waiting in Maya's office. My parents had no idea how right they were, or why. The next morning, I arrived at the gallery early, wearing my starving artist uniform of paint-stained jeans and an oversized sweater. My father barely noticed me as I slipped in, too busy preparing for his meeting with S.A. Blake's representative. "Sophie, not now," he said distractedly when I tried to speak to him. "Blake's team will be here any minute. We need everything to be perfect." I watched him adjust a painting that was already perfectly straight. "Dad, maybe we should talk about—" Later, he cut me off. "Whatever little project you're working on can wait. This is important." Right on cue, Maya walked through the front doors of the gallery. She looked every inch the high-powered art world attorney in her tailored suit and sleek briefcase. No one would ever connect her to the bohemian art consultant who helped me discover new talents in underground galleries. "Mr. Anderson," she extended her hand. "I'm Margaret Chin, representing S.A. Blake." My father practically tripped over himself to shake her hand. "Yes, yes. We're so honored. Please come this way to my office." I followed them, unnoticed as usual. My mother appeared from somewhere, her perfect mask of composure slightly cracked with anticipation. "Sophie," she hissed, "don't you have somewhere else to be?" "Actually," Maya said smoothly, "Ms. Anderson should join us. This concerns her too." My parents exchanged confused looks but didn't argue. In their minds, Blake's representative must have her reasons, even if they couldn't understand them. My father's office was a testament to old-world luxury, leather-bound books, antique furniture, and prized artworks covering every wall. Maya took it all in with professional interest, though I knew she was mentally calculating how much it would all bring at auction if necessary. "Before we begin," Maya said, setting her briefcase on the desk, "I need to clarify something. This meeting isn't just about saving the Anderson Gallery, it's about transforming it." "Transforming?" My father frowned. "I don't understand. Our gallery has a certain reputation." "A reputation that's killing it," Maya interrupted gently. "Mr. Anderson, your gallery is 3 months away from bankruptcy. Your traditional model isn't working anymore." The color drained from my father's face. "How did you—" "Say Blake has been watching your gallery for some time," Maya continued. "We've seen its decline, but we've also seen its potential. With the right changes, the Anderson Gallery could become a bridge between classical and contemporary art." My mother grabbed my father's hand. "What kind of changes?" Maya opened her briefcase and began laying out documents. "First, a complete financial restructuring. Blake will purchase the gallery's debt and invest significant capital for modernization." "Purchase our debt." My father's voice was faint. "All of it," Maya confirmed. "The gallery, the mortgages, everything. In exchange, Blake wants 2 things: 51% ownership and complete creative control over the gallery's new direction." "Control?" Now my father's voice rose sharply. "This gallery has been in my family for generations. We have standards, traditions that are bankrupting you," Maya said firmly. "Mr. Anderson, this isn't a hostile takeover. It's a rescue mission. Blake wants to preserve your legacy while bringing the gallery into the modern era." I watched my father struggle with this, his pride warred with his desperation, his fear of change battling his fear of losing everything. "What?" He swallowed hard. "What exactly would these changes entail?" Maya pulled out a tablet, bringing up images of modern gallery spaces, a complete renovation of the East Wing to showcase emerging artists. Digital installations, interactive exhibits, a strong online presence, and most importantly, a new curator who understands both classical and contemporary markets. My mother gasped. Replace Thomas? Not replace, I found myself saying. Everyone turned to look at me, as if just remembering I was there. Partner with. Someone who can bridge the gap between old and new. Maya nodded approvingly. Exactly. In fact, Blake has someone specific in mind. She slid another document across the desk. My father picked it up, his eyes widening as he read. This can't be right. These sales figures. They're correct, Maya assured him. Every piece sold, every exhibition curated, every artist discovered, all verified. But this is, he looked up at me, really seeing me for the first time in years. Sophie? I met his gaze steadily. Remember all those coffee shop exhibitions you mocked? They weren't just about selling paintings. They were about finding talent, building relationships, understanding where the market is going, not just where it's been. You, my mother's voice was barely a whisper. You've been selling art? Successfully. Very successfully, Maya confirmed. Your daughter has one of the best eyes in the business for emerging talent. Artists she's discovered are now selling for 6 and 7 figures. My father slumped in his chair. All this time, while we were dismissing your work, I was learning the business. I finished for him. Not your way, but my way, and it works. Maya pulled out more documents, sales records, critical reviews, market analyses, all showing how the artists I championed had skyrocketed in value. Say Blake wants Sophie as the gallery's new co-curator, she explained, working alongside Thomas to blend classical expertise with contemporary vision. Blake knows my work, I asked, playing my part. Blake knows everything about the art world, Maya said with the smallest wink, including who really understands it. My parents were silent for a long time, looking through the documents. I could see them struggling to reconcile their image of their disappointing daughter with these proof of my success. Finally, my father looked up. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have listened? I asked quietly, or would you have dismissed it as another hobby, another sign that I wasn't living up to the Anderson name? He flinched. We only wanted what was best for you. No, I corrected him gently. You wanted what was best for the gallery, what fit your vision of success. You never asked what I wanted. And now, my mother asked, what do you want now? I looked around the gallery, the place that had shaped my childhood, taught me to love art in all its forms. I want to save this place, but not by living in the past. The art world is changing. We need to change with it. Maya cleared her throat. The contracts are ready if you want to review them. Blake's offer expires at the end of the week. My father picked up his reading glasses, then hesitated. This curator position, you'd accept it. Work with us, not against us. I've never been against you, Dad. I just saw possibilities you couldn't see. He nodded slowly. And Blake? Why remain anonymous? Why not meet with us directly? Maya smiled diplomatically. Say Blake prefers to let the art speak for itself. Success isn't always about being seen. The next few hours were a blur of negotiations and signatures. My parents' lawyers were called, documents were reviewed, and slowly the future of the Anderson Gallery took shape. By evening, it was done. The gallery was saved, though transformed. My parents had surrendered control but secured their legacy, and I had finally found a way to bridge my two worlds. There's one more thing, Maya said as we prepared to leave. She pulled out a single canvas, carefully wrapped. My father unwrapped it slowly, his eyes widening as he revealed my latest painting, the one he'd dismissed in my studio. Blake would like this to be the first piece displayed in the gallery's new contemporary wing, Maya explained, as a symbol of the transition between old and new. This is, my father studied the painting with new eyes. This is extraordinary, Sophie. The complexity, the technique. How did we not see it? Because you weren't looking, I said simply. You saw what you expected to see. My mother touched the canvas gently. Blake wants this piece, but would he rather keep it? Your first major gallery showing? I smiled, thinking of all my work that had already sold for small fortunes under different names. Something tells me there will be more pieces to come. After Maya left, my parents insisted I stay for dinner. We sat in my father's office, surrounded by the art that had shaped our lives, and really talked for the first time in years. We were wrong, my father said finally. About you, about art, about everything. Can you forgive us? There's nothing to forgive, I assured him. We all had to learn to see things differently. Over the next few months, the Anderson Gallery underwent its transformation. The East Wing was renovated into a stunning contemporary space. Digital installations attracted younger collectors. Our online presence grew exponentially. And through it all, my secret remained safe. Say Blake continued to collect and influence from the shadows, while Sophie Anderson emerged as a respected curator with an eye for new talent. 1 year after the gallery's transformation, we hosted a special exhibition. Bridging Worlds showcased classical masterpieces alongside contemporary works, demonstrating how tradition and innovation could coexist beautifully. The centerpiece was my painting, the one that had started it all. Now valued at over $1 million, it drew collectors and critics from around the world. I still can't believe S.A. Blake saw your potential before we did, my father said during the opening, watching as another wealthy collector admired my work. I smiled, thinking of the latest acquisition I'd made under Blake's name. Sometimes the most valuable things are hidden in plain sight. Speaking of Blake, my mother joined us, champagne in hand. The mysterious collector has acquired another piece for the gallery. Did you hear? No, I said innocently. Do tell. As she launched into the story, I caught Maya's eye across the room. She raised her glass slightly, a private toast to our shared secret. The truth about S.A. Blake would come out eventually. The art world loved its mysteries, but it loved revelations even more. When that day came, I hoped my parents would understand why I kept my success hidden for so long. But for now, I was content to let them marvel at the transformation of both their gallery and their daughter. They'd learned to see art, and me, with new eyes. That was worth more than any painting in our collection. To new perspectives, I said, raising my glass. To family, my father added. To art, my mother finished. To all of it, I thought. To hidden talents and second chances. To proving that success doesn't always look the way we expect. And most importantly, to finally being seen for who I really was. Not just an artist, not just a curator, but someone who had found her own way to make her mark on the world. Still hiding among your precious books, Julia? Drew's voice cut through the quiet of the library's rare books section. Don't you get tired of wasting your life? I looked up from the leather-bound volume I was examining to find my brother leaning against a shelf, his designer suit a stark contrast to my modest librarian's attire. His smirk was the same one he'd worn since childhood, the expression of someone who believed he'd already won. Hello, Drew, I said calmly, carefully placing the book back in its protective case. I didn't expect to see you here. Mom sent me. She wants to make sure you're not going to embarrass us at their anniversary party tonight. He glanced around the library with poorly concealed disdain. Though I suppose it's too late for that. A librarian in the family, Dad's still trying to explain that one to his golf buddies. My name is Julia Morgan, though my brother prefers the family disappointment. At 34, I was the head librarian at the city's central library, a position that made my old money family cringe. What they didn't know, what I'd carefully hidden for years, was that my life among the books was only half the story. I'll be there, I assured him, standing to my full height. Even in heels, he still towered over me. And I'll dress appropriately. See that you do. He straightened his Rolex, a recent purchase he hadn't stopped flaunting. It's an important night. I'm announcing some big news. Oh. His grin widened. Bought my third company this year. Morgan Industries is now officially a conglomerate. Dad's going to be so proud. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. If Drew noticed the slight tightening of my hands, he didn't mention it. That's wonderful, I said. Congratulations. Thanks. He didn't even try to make it sound sincere. You know, there's still time for you to join the real world. I could use someone to manage our corporate library. At least then you'd be doing something useful with all this knowledge. The way he said knowledge made it sound like a disease. I smiled, thinking of the encrypted laptop in my office safe, of the meetings I'd been taking under a different name. I'm happy where I am, I told him. He shrugged, already turning away. Your loss. Remember, 7 o'clock sharp. And Julia? He paused at the door. Try not to bring any books this time. After you left, I waited exactly 5 minutes before heading to my office. The space was modest but efficient, with walls of books and a desk that had seen better days. To most, it looked exactly like what they'd expect from a librarian's office. They never noticed the state-of-the-art security system or the fact that my ancient desktop computer was a custom-built machine more powerful than most corporate servers. Locking the door, I opened my laptop and connected to a secure server. 3 windows popped up immediately, video calls waiting from Tokyo, London, and New York. "Good morning, Ms. Morgan," my assistant's voice came through clearly. "The Nakamura deal is ready for final review." "Thank you, Sarah," I said, scanning the documents on my screen. "Has legal finished their assessment?" "Yes, ma'am. The acquisition terms are solid. We can move forward whenever you're ready." I glanced at my watch. 5 hours until my parents' anniversary party. Plenty of time. "Schedule the signing for tomorrow morning," I instructed. "And Sarah, make sure everything's in place for the announcement." "Already done. The press release is ready to go." Though, she hesitated. "Are you sure about the timing?" I thought of Drew's smug face, of years of condescension and dismissal. "Yes, I'm sure. Tomorrow morning will be perfect." After ending the call, I sat back in my chair, looking at the empire I built in secret. Morgan Global Partners, no relation to my brother's Morgan Industries, despite the similar name, was now one of the largest private equity firms in the world. We operated entirely in the shadows, using shell companies and discrete investments to hide our true size. For 7 years, I'd built this company while maintaining my cover as a simple librarian. The job wasn't just a front. I genuinely loved books, loved preserving knowledge and helping people access it. But it also provided the perfect cover for my other life. Who would suspect the quiet librarian of being one of the most powerful people in global finance? My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Don't forget to do something with your hair, dear. The Prescotts will be there tonight." The Prescotts, one of many old money families my parents were always trying to impress. I texted back a simple "ok" and began packing up for the day. I had a hair appointment already scheduled, along with a fitting for the dress I'd bought specifically for tonight. Just because I didn't flaunt my wealth didn't mean I couldn't play the part when needed. The salon was empty when I arrived, perks of owning the building and having a standing private appointment. Maria, my longtime stylist and one of the few people who knew my secret, was waiting. "The usual?" she asked, gesturing to a chair. "Something a bit more formal today," I said. "Family event." She nodded knowingly. "Ah, the famous Morgan anniversary party. Your brother was in earlier, talking about it to anyone who would listen." I'm sure he was. As Maria worked, I checked my emails on a secure phone. The Nakamura acquisition was proceeding smoothly. By this time tomorrow, Morgan Global Partners would own one of the largest tech manufacturers in Asia. The same company my brother had been trying to buy for months. "Your brother mentioned he's buying some big company," Maria said, as if reading my thoughts. Couldn't stop bragging about it. I smiled. "He's trying to buy it. There's a difference." She caught my eye in the mirror. "You didn't?" "Let's just say tomorrow's papers will be interesting." 3 hours later, I stood in front of my mirror at home, examining my transformation. The simple librarian was gone, replaced by someone who could hold her own at any society event. The dress, a deep blue Valentino I'd had altered to perfection, was elegant without being flashy. My jewelry was minimal but expensive, the kind of pieces old money favored. Most importantly, I looked exactly like what my family expected, their bookish daughter making an effort to fit in. My phone buzzed with another text, this time from Sarah. "Everything's set for tomorrow. Are you sure you don't want to tell them tonight?" "No," I replied. "Let them have their party. Tomorrow will be soon enough." The Morgan family estate was lit up like a Christmas tree when I arrived. Cars lined up along the circular driveway. I recognized most of them, Bentleys and Rolls-Royces belonging to the same families that had been part of our social circle for generations. A valet appeared as I pulled up in my modest Audi, another carefully chosen prop. The car was nice enough to avoid embarrassing my parents, but not so nice as to raise questions about a librarian's salary. Miss Morgan, Jenkins, our family's longtime butler, greeted me at the door. "Your parents are in the main hall." I could hear the party before I saw it, the murmur of sophisticated conversation, the clink of expensive crystal, the subtle notes of a string quartet. This was my parents' world, the one I'd chosen to step away from, at least publicly. Julia, my mother's voice carried across the hall. Darling, you look presentable. Coming from her, it was high praise. Elizabeth Morgan had never quite forgiven me for choosing books over business, but at least I'd made an effort with my appearance tonight. Happy anniversary, Mom, I said, kissing her cheek. You look beautiful. She did. At 60, she was still the epitome of grace and style. Her friends often joked that she'd made a deal with the devil to maintain her youthful appearance. Your father's by the fireplace, she said, already scanning the room for more important guests. Do say hello before you hide in the library. I made my way through the crowd, accepting air kisses and polite inquiries about my little job at the library. Most of these people had known me since childhood, had watched me grow up alongside their own children. None of them understood my choices. There's my girl. Dad's voice boomed as I approached. He was holding court with his usual crowd, golf buddies and business associates who'd been part of his life for decades. Come here, let them see you. I submitted to his enthusiastic hug, noting the slight slur in his words. He'd started the celebrations early, as usual. Still working with those books? Harold Prescott asked, his tone making it clear what he thought of such an occupation. Still working with those books, I confirmed. Someone has to preserve knowledge for the next generation. They laughed, the indulgent chuckle of people humoring what they saw as a harmless eccentricity. Speaking of the next generation, Dad said proudly, "Where's your brother? He's got some big news to share." As if on cue, Drew appeared, champagne in hand. He changed into an even more expensive suit, his Rolex catching a light as he gestured. "Everyone," he called out, his voice carrying across the hall. "I'd like to make an announcement." The room quieted, all eyes turning to him. Drew lived for moments like this, had always thrived on being the center of attention. "As some of you know, Morgan Industries has been growing rapidly this year," he began, playing to his audience. "Today, I'm proud to announce that we're on the verge of our biggest acquisition yet. By this time next week, we'll own Nakamura Tech." The room erupted in applause. Dad beamed with pride, Mom dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. I sipped my champagne and waited. "Of course," Drew continued, "the deal isn't quite final yet, but my sources tell me it's just a matter of time. The papers are ready to sign." "That's wonderful, son," Dad exclaimed. "Always knew you had it in you, a real businessman, just like your old man." Drew basked in the praise, accepting congratulations from all sides. Finally, his gaze fell on me. "What do you think, little sister?" he asked, his tone dripping with condescension. "Ready to admit you backed the wrong horse." I met his eyes calmly. "I think," I said carefully, "that you shouldn't count your chickens before they're hatched." He laughed and others joined in. "Always so cautious, Jules. That's why you'll never be more than what you are. Hiding in your library while the rest of us build empires." Perhaps, I agreed mildly, but at least I understand the value of due diligence. His eyes narrowed slightly. Drew had never liked it when I used big words, seeing it as a challenge to his intelligence. "Due diligence?" he scoffed. "I've got the best lawyers in the business. Everything's taken care of." I just smiled and raised my glass. "Then I guess we'll all see tomorrow, won't we?" He frowned, catching something in my tone, but before he could press further, Mom was calling everyone to dinner. The dining room was a masterpiece of old-world elegance, gleaming mahogany, priceless china, crystal that had been in the family for generations. I took my assigned seat, noting with amusement that I'd been placed at the far end of the table, well away from any important guests. As the first course was served, Drew held court from his position near Dad, regaling everyone with tales of his business prowess. I kept quiet, responding politely when addressed but otherwise focusing on my food. "I just don't understand," Mrs. Prescott said from beside me, her voice low. "You were always so bright in school. You could have done anything. Why waste your life with books?" I considered how to answer. In 12 hours, everything would change. But for now, I had a role to play. "Books are never a waste," I said simply. "They teach us that things aren't always what they seem." She shook her head, clearly disappointed by my response. "Well, at least your brother is upholding the family name. Though it must be hard, watching him succeed while well, it's not as hard as you might think." The rest of dinner passed in a blur of subtle insults and backhanded compliments. I'd grown used to it over the years, had learned to let it roll off me like water. As dessert was being served, Drew stood again, calling for attention. "I'd like to propose a toast," he announced, raising his glass. "To Mom and Dad, who taught me everything I know about business, who showed me what real success looks like." He paused, his eyes finding me. "And to my sister, who proves that not everyone is cut out for the family business." The room chuckled politely. I raised my glass with the others, thinking of the documents waiting to be signed, of the press release scheduled for morning. Enjoying the party, Drew asked later, cornering me by the dessert table. "It's lovely," I replied. "Mom and Dad must be so proud." "They are." He straightened his tie smugly. "Though it would have been nice if both their children had amounted to something." I selected a chocolate truffle, examining it carefully. "You know, Drew, success isn't always about making the most noise." He snorted. "No? Tell that to my bank account. How much does a librarian make these days anyway?" "Enough to buy those shoes." I glanced down at my Louboutins, another carefully chosen piece of my costume. "I'm good with money." "Right." He finished his champagne in one gulp. "Well, this has been fun, but I should mingle. Big day tomorrow after all. That Nakamura deal isn't going to close itself." As he walked away, I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to Sarah. "Everything ready for morning." Her response was immediate. "All set. Press release goes out at 9 a.m. sharp. Want me to send you the final numbers?" "No need," I replied. "I'll see them in the papers with everyone else." The party began winding down around midnight. I said my goodbyes, accepting one last round of condescending comments about my career choices. "You really should consider Drew's offer," Mom said as I kissed her cheek. "A corporate library would be so much more appropriate." "I'll think about it," I promised, knowing I would do no such thing. As I drove home, I thought about how different tomorrow would be. For 7 years, I'd maintained my cover, building my empire in secret while my family dismissed me as the disappointing daughter who'd chosen books over business. Tomorrow, they'd learn just how wrong they'd been. The next morning, I arrived at the library precisely at 8, just as I had every day for the past 7 years. My sensible shoes echoed through the marble halls as I made my way to my office, nodding at the early morning regulars who never questioned why the head librarian kept such strict hours. Sarah was waiting for me, her tablet in hand. In the library, she played the role of my assistant librarian perfectly. Outside these walls, she was the COO of Morgan Global Partners and one of the sharpest business minds I ever met. "Everything's ready," she said quietly as we entered my office. "The lawyers are gathering in Tokyo. Press release goes out in 45 minutes. I set my bag down and powered up my secure laptop. "Any word from Drew's team?" "They're still expecting to close the Nakamura deal this morning. Your brother's lawyers are setting up in their offices right now." I smiled, imagining Drew's face when he realized what was about to happen. Let's give them a few more minutes of hope. At precisely 8:55, my private line rang. "Ms. Morgan," Mr. Nakamura's translator said, "everyone is in position." "Excellent. Let's proceed." The next few minutes were a blur of signatures and confirmations. By 9 a.m., Morgan Global Partners officially owned Nakamura Tech, along with its subsidiaries, patents, and cutting-edge technology division. "Press release going out now," Sarah announced. I pulled up several news sites on my screen, watching as the story broke across multiple platforms simultaneously. Breaking: mystery buyer acquires Nakamura Tech. Global finance giant Morgan Global Partners reveals identity of founder. Wall Street stunned as library sciences expert named as business mogul. My phone started buzzing immediately. The first call, predictably, was from Drew. "What the hell is this?" he demanded without preamble. "Some sick joke?" "Good morning to you too, brother," I replied calmly. "I take it you've seen the news." "This is impossible," he sputtered. "Morgan Global Partners. That's not. You're not. The founder and CEO. Actually, I am. Have been for 7 years now. Though I understand your confusion, after all, I'm just a librarian, right?" There was a long silence, broken only by what sounded like papers being frantically shuffled. But I had a deal. The paperwork was ready. "Was it?" I asked innocently. "You might want to check the fine print. Nakamura Tech has been in play for months. We've just been waiting for the right moment to finalize things." "We?" His voice cracked. "Who's we?" "My team, my company, my empire." I paused, letting each word sink in. "You know, The one I built while you were busy mocking my career choices. The line went dead. I looked at Sarah, who was trying to hide her grin. How long until my parents call? She checked her watch. I give it 3, 2. Right on cue, my mother's number flashed on my screen. Julia Elizabeth Morgan. Her voice was shrill enough to crack glass. What have you done? Good morning, Mom. I'm a bit busy at the moment. Perhaps we could discuss this over dinner. Dinner? Dinner? Do you have any idea what's happening? Your father's phone is ringing off the hook. The Prescotts are calling. The club is calling. Everyone wants to know how our librarian daughter secretly built a multi-billion-dollar company. I could hear Dad in the background, apparently trying to field calls of his own. Tell her to get over here right now, he shouted. I have meetings all day, I said, which was true. The acquisition of Nakamura Tech was just the beginning. But I'd be happy to host everyone for dinner at my place tonight. Say, 7 o'clock. Your place. Mom's voice dripped with suspicion. You mean that little apartment near the library? No, I mean my penthouse on Highland Avenue. I'll text you the address. There was a long pause. Highland Avenue, but that's the most expensive building in the city. Is it? I hadn't noticed. See you at 7, Mom. After ending the call, I took a moment to breathe. 7 years of secrets were finally coming to light. 7 years of careful planning, of maintaining my cover while building something extraordinary. Ready for phase 2? Sarah asked. I nodded. Send out the second press release. This one was even bigger than the first. Morgan Global Partners announces merger with East Asian tech giants. Deal valued at $50 billion. The merger had been in the works for months, but we timed it perfectly to follow the Nakamura acquisition. By the time my family arrived for dinner, the business world would be reeling from 2 of the biggest deals of the decade, both orchestrated by the quiet librarian they'd dismissed for so long. The rest of the day passed in a carefully choreographed dance of meetings, interviews, and strategic planning. I gave exactly 1 interview to the Wall Street Journal, explaining how my background in library sciences had actually been perfect preparation for building a global empire. Information is power, I told the reporter, and who better to understand the value of information than a librarian? At 6:30, I left the library and headed to my real office, the top floor of the Highland Avenue building that had been my home for the past 5 years. The penthouse occupied the entire floor, though I'd maintained a small apartment near the library for appearance's sake. My private elevator opened directly into the foyer, where my actual home office put Drew's corporate headquarters to shame. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, while state-of-the-art technology allowed me to manage my empire from anywhere in the space. Sarah had arranged for dinner to be catered by the city's most exclusive restaurant, another establishment quietly owned by Morgan Global Partners. The dining room table was set with the kind of understated elegance that only old money could truly appreciate. At precisely 7 o'clock, the elevator announced my family's arrival. Drew entered first, his earlier swagger replaced by barely contained fury. Mom and Dad followed, both looking shell-shocked. Even Jenkins, who had insisted on accompanying them, seemed unsure how to process the transformation of the family's poor relation into one of the city's wealthiest residents. Welcome to my home, I said, gesturing to the spectacular view. Drink? How long? Drew demanded. How long have you been lying to us? Lying? I moved to the bar, pouring myself a scotch. I never lied about anything. I am a librarian. I do love books. I just happen to run a global financial empire as well. But why? Mom sank onto one of my Italian leather sofas. Why the deception? Why let us think that I was a failure? I finished for her, that I'd wasted my potential, maybe because you never bothered to look past your own assumptions. You saw what you expected to see, the disappointing daughter who chose books over business. Dad was standing by the windows, staring out at the city he thought he knew so well. All this time, he murmured. All those companies we've been reading about, the mysterious acquisitions. That was you, Drew said flatly. Morgan Global Partners. The competition everyone's been trying to figure out. The shadow empire that's been reshaping the market. I smiled. It does have a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Though I prefer to think of it as a knowledge empire. After all, that's what you taught me, isn't it, Dad? Knowledge is power. He turned to face me, and for the first time in my life, I saw something new in his eyes. Respect. The Nakamura deal, he said slowly. How long have you been planning that? About 6 months, though I've owned controlling interest in their subsidiaries for over a year. I looked at Drew. You never wondered why they kept finding reasons to delay your offer. My brother's face went from red to white. You've been playing me. All this time. Not playing, Drew, competing. Isn't that what you always wanted? A chance to prove who was better at business. But it wasn't fair, he exploded. You had inside information, secret resources. Inside information. I laughed. You mean like the kind you get from your golf club buddies? The deals you make on private yachts and exclusive resorts. I set my glass down carefully. I built my empire with nothing but intelligence, hard work, and a deep understanding of how information flows. Everything I learned in my little library job gave me an edge you couldn't see. Dinner is served, a voice announced discreetly. We moved to the dining room, the tension thick enough to cut with one of my sterling silver knives. Mom kept looking around as if trying to reconcile this environment with her mental image of my life. Dad seemed lost in thought, probably recalculating every business decision he'd made in the past 7 years. I suppose, Mom said finally, staring at her perfect place setting. This explains how you could afford those Louboutins. I couldn't help but laugh. Yes, Mom. That's what you should focus on, my shoe budget. What happens now? Drew asked, pushing his food around his plate. Going to buy out Morgan Industries too. Actually, I have a different proposition. I nodded to Sarah, who appeared with a folder. Your company has potential, Drew. Good bones, as they say in real estate. What it lacks is vision and modern infrastructure. He frowned. What are you suggesting? A partnership. Morgan Industries handles the traditional side, while Morgan Global Partners brings the technology and global reach. Together, we could build something even bigger. You want to work with me, after everything? No, I corrected him. I want to work with the businessman you could be, if you got over your ego and learned to see value in unexpected places. Dad set down his fork. Julia's right, he said, surprising everyone. This is an opportunity, Drew. A chance to be part of something bigger than ourselves. But she lied to us. Drew protested. Made us look like fools. No, Dad shook his head. We made ourselves look like fools. We were so convinced we knew what success looked like that we couldn't see it taking a different form. Your sister, she saw something we missed, built something we never imagined. Mom dabbed at her eyes with her napkin. All those times we pitied you, she said softly, worried about your future. I know, I said, gentler now. But maybe it's time to stop worrying about appearances and start focusing on substance. Isn't that what real business is about? The rest of dinner was a careful dance of revelations and reconciliations. I explained how I built my company, how the library had provided the perfect cover and connections. Dad asked increasingly detailed questions about my business strategy, his initial shock giving way to genuine admiration. Even Drew began to thaw as I outlined my vision for our potential partnership. By dessert, he was suggesting ways to integrate our operations. His natural business instincts finally focused on creation rather than competition. There's one thing I don't understand, Mom said as coffee was served. Why reveal everything now? Why not just stay in the shadows? I looked at my brother. Because sometimes people need to be reminded that success doesn't always wear a suit and tie. That power doesn't always announce itself with a Rolex and a corner office. And sometimes, Drew added quietly, people need to be reminded not to judge a book by its cover. Exactly. Later that night, after my family had left, Dad with a stack of proposals to review, Mom with a list of social events to recalibrate, and Drew with a lot to think about, I stood at my windows watching the city lights. Sarah joined me, handing me a fresh scotch. Well, that went better than expected. Did it? I smiled. Or did it go exactly as planned? You knew they'd react this way. I knew they'd have to confront their own prejudices, their assumptions about success and worth. I sipped my drink. The question is whether the lesson will stick. She checked her tablet. Stocks up 30% since the announcement. Your brother's company is up 10% just on rumors of a potential partnership. Good. Let's give it a week, let everything settle, then announce the merger. By then, Drew might actually be ready to be a real partner. And your parents? I thought about Mom's tearful apology, Dad's proud smile as he finally saw me, really saw me, for the first time. They're learning. Sometimes the hardest part of success is accepting that it doesn't always look the way you expect. The next morning, I'd arrived at the library at my usual time. The same regulars were in their usual spots, nodding hello to their favorite librarian. None of them treated me any differently, though my face was splashed across every business publication in the country. And that, perhaps, was the greatest victory of all. In a world obsessed with image and status, I built something real, something that didn't need designer labels or social validation to prove its worth. I was still a librarian. I still loved books. I just happened to be a billionaire, too. Knowledge, after all, comes in many forms, and sometimes the most powerful people are the ones you least expect.